The Platting Board meeting will come to order, and it is August 8th, 6:30 p.m. May I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Story? Mr. Abel?
Here.
Mr. Fuller?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Present.
Mr. Cole? Mr. Kange?
Here.
Mr. Edmondson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Enix?
Thank you. We have a quorum tonight. Are there any changes to the agenda, postponements or changes to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move forward. We have approvals, and we have a summary of action for July 17th. May I have a positive motion for the summary of actions? Mr. Kange and Mr. Edmondson seconds. Are there any clarifications? Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing and seeing none, the summary of actions are approved. We don't have any minutes tonight. Are there any special orders of business? Disclosures? No disclosures. I have 3 disclosures. In the case of S12003-1, Mont Haven Subdivision Tract 3A, my firm has had business dealings with the petitioner's representative on other matters. I am a former employee of the petitioner's representative. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. May I have a positive motion directing me to participate in this case? Mr. Edmondson and Mr. Fuller seconds. Are there any, Mr. Edmondson, will you speak to your motion, please?
I move to direct Chairman Young to participate in case number S12003-1, Mont Haven Subdivision. I believe he doesn't have any financial interest in this project in this case as he's described, and that he can act impartially.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries, and I'm directed to participate in case S12003-1. The next disclosure I have is case S12006-1, Rogers Park Subdivision, Block 2, Lots 8 and 9. My firm has had business dealings with the petitioner's representative on other matters. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. May I have a positive motion directing me to participate in the Rogers Park subdivision case? Mr. Edmondson, and second by Mr. Kange. Mr. Edmondson, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yeah, I move to direct Mr. Young to participate in case number S12006-1, Rogers Park Subdivision. I believe Mr. Young doesn't have a financial or substantial private interest in this case or project, and he can act impartially.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or opposition? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes, and I'm directed to participate in the Rogers Park subdivision case. In my third disclosure in the matter of case S11987-2, Denali, Alaska FCU subdivision, tracts 1 and 2, my firm has had business dealings with petitioner's representatives on other matters. I'm a former employee of the petitioner's representative. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. I have a positive motion directing me to participate in the Denali, Alaska FCU case. Mr. Edmondson, and second by Mr. Kange. Mr. Edmondson, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yeah, I move to direct Mr. Young to participate in case number S11987-2, Denali, Alaskan FCU subdivision. I believe based on Mr. Young's comments that he has no financial interest or personal interest in this case or project, and he can act impartially as he's outlined in his remarks.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes, and I'm directed to participate in the Denali FCU case. Thank you. Are there any other disclosures or conflicts of interest? There's no consent agenda tonight. There's no pulled consent agenda items. Unfinished business. We don't have any unfinished business, and we are on to our regular agenda. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established by the Commission rules and procedures. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. And I'd like to clarify this. If you don't reserve time for rebuttal, and let's say, for example, you use, as a petitioner, you use 5 of your minutes for your presentation, the remaining 5 minutes are automatically remain for you to use as your rebuttal. If you reserve time for rebuttal, let's say that you want to reserve 3 minutes, then the timer will go off at 7 minutes, and there will be 3 minutes that you have reserved. Either way, you get your 10 minutes, but please tell us if you want to reserve some of that time. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.504, The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision within 20 days of the final appealable decision. An interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503 or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. The first case in front of us tonight is S12003-1, Mont Haven subdivision. This was postponed from July 17th. May we have staff's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to combine 2 tracts of land into 1 tract with vacation of a 45-foot wide access easement that is on one of the tracts to serve the other one. When they're combined into one, there's no longer a need for that access easement. That's the vacation. None of the reviewing agencies, not planning or traffic, have any objection to the vacation of the easement. The department recommends approval of the vacation and approval of the plat, subject to the conditions 1 through 4 on pages 5, 6, and 7 of the packet. The underlying plat, to compare it to the proposed plat, the underlying plat is on the back of your packet, on page 68 on the back of your packet. There are several laid on the table comments or comments or supplemental comments. I think only one was laid on the table tonight. You had the others previously. But what they are, one of them is from the planning department, which shows what the West Anchorage District Plan says about this site and potential future access. So that's the West Anchorage District Plan. That's one of them. Another one is comments from the Randy Ribble and from Mike Abbott of the school district, which specifically states the school district has no objection to a proposed plat note, carrying forward a proposed plat note from the underlying plat. You'll see the wording for the new plat note, or the carrying forward the plat note. It's the same as before. It's a 4A, condition 4A on page 6 of your packet. So the school district specifically states they have no objection to the proposed plat note. It's a carrying forward of a plat note from the previous plat. And then there are two comments from the public. These two folks from the public have concerns about specifically that plat note. Now, just read a portion of the staff report, which sort of discusses the issue around the plat note. The subject property abuts West Northern Lights Boulevard, which is classified as a Class 3 major arterial street on the official streets and highways plan. The preliminary plat shows a 37.91 foot right-of-way dedication. The preliminary plat needs to carry forward the 12-foot development setback from the underlying plat that has to do with setbacks from as required by the official streets and highways plan. So this is just carrying forward the building setback. Also, the preliminary plat needs to carry forward the plat note stating that only one driveway is permitted from this site onto West Northern Lights Boulevard. The official streets and highways plan strongly discourages new driveways onto collector or greater roads, this being an major arterial. The speed limit is 45 miles per hour. There's significant volume of traffic on this street. Both the municipal traffic engineer and the Alaska Department of Transportation have called for the plat note to be carried forward from the underlying plat. This is a safety issue. As I pointed out earlier, the school district has no objection to the plat note being carried forward. The West Romig master plan shows a potential north-south pedestrian connection between Northern Lights Boulevard and the high school and the middle school to the north. The dedication of a walkway matching the West Romig master plan should be considered, but not with the plat. Instead, with this pedestrian or this potential connection will be handled, should be handled with a forthcoming public facilities site plan review. Currently, this site, the hockey rinks are under a public facility site plan review. They're approved for that, and because it's a public facility, they went through public facility site plan review for the two hockey rinks. There's a conditional use permit on the other tract, which for off-street parking. There's some of the spillover parking from the hockey rinks onto this undeveloped tract. That off-street parking conditional use will go away. There won't be any need for it when this interior lot line is removed to put the two tracks together. The importance of dealing with the walkway or a connection between the West Northern Lights and the school property. First of all, there already exists a connection. It's gated, but it's there. It can be opened for events and things. But, creating a new connection between Mont Haven subdivision and the school property to the north should, the location of that, whether or not there is one at all, that should be handled with the public facility site plan review, which will be forthcoming. Be happy to answer any other questions. I don't have any other comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Will the petitioner's representative please come forward and state your name, spell your last name for us, and let us know if you'd like to reserve some time for rebuttal.
Good evening. My name is Dave Hale, H-A-L-E, with R&M Consultants representing the petitioner municipality of Anchorage. I have nothing to add that staff hasn't already discussed, and we have no objection to their comments and conditions. But I'd like to reserve whatever time we have remaining for rebuttal, please.
Thank you. You have 9 minutes and 43 seconds left for rebuttal. Are there any questions of the petitioner's representative? Thank you. This portion of the hearing is now open to the public. Is there anybody from the public wishing to testify tonight? State your name for the record and spell your last name, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Platting Board. My name is John Isaacs. I live at 2418 Forest Park Drive, and I'm a member of a Turnagain Community Council subcommittee that's looking at solutions to reducing some of the potential issues with access, parking, and traffic impacts with development of this lot. I'll be speaking for myself tonight and not as part of the Turnagain Community Council. I think the staff did a very good job of explaining what some of the issues are, a very good depiction of what the current process is, and I would like to express appreciation for both the staff with planning and also with facilities and parks and recreation for working with the council to look at some solutions here. One minor correction to the staff report: one of the issues with access from the West High as part of the school district master plan is not just pedestrian, but it's also bus access, because when you look at the development of the athletic fields, part of their long-term plan is to provide bus access from the fields out through the lot to Northern Lights, which comes to one of my concerns. I think one of the issues may be where is the ultimate location of one driveway access. I understand that Department of Transportation and staff are recommending one. It may be that as part of the site planning process, that location of the access may need to change, and I'm not sure what the flexibility is of approval of this plat or whether that would need to come back for additional action. But I think at this point in time, the main issues that I'm concerned about, will be dealt with in the site planning process with the municipality and the school district, and I think the record here accurately supports that process. So if there's no further questions, I'm through with my testimony.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Isaacs? Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to testify?
Chair, members of the Platting Board, my name is Kathy Gleason. Excuse me. I'm president of Turnagain Community Council. That's Gleason. So thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening. John Isaacs probably expressed very succinctly where the council is at this point. We haven't taken a formal position on your actions that are being proposed, but we do have concerns. There were a lot of dedicated Turnagain residents who put in multiple years in putting together the West Romig Master Plan, and the access to that small campus for the joint high school and middle school is a problem that seems to not be resolved through anything that's happened up to this point. And there was a lot of work to try and identify how the access from the neighborhood and the outer Lyon areas around the campus can more easily get to that. With the addition of the West Stadium that's being built right now, we'll have 2,500 seating capacity, and the municipality and the school district are working on a joint agreement to use both properties so there can be a flow of traffic for West events at the Dempsey site and the Dempsey and new tennis court facility, which will accommodate 300 additional spectators to the campus. So as you can imagine, this whole area is just kind of a mix of potential traffic issues that need to be resolved. And limiting the driveway access to one place as it's located on the plat now could be an issue when we have a chance to delve more deeply into the impacts of a tennis facility at that site. So I'm not sure what the board can do at this point except perhaps delay some action to allow more time for the dialogue to continue. One thing that I did note in the email from the school district was they referred to the appropriate time to deal with the West Romig master plan and access to Northern Lights is through the site plan, which was mentioned, but also a conditional use permit process. But the planning department, has indicated, or I should say municipal staff has indicated that this will not be required to get a conditional use permit. So we don't have that opportunity to try and get to the bottom of this issue as best we can. Again, the council has not taken any formal position on this. We don't meet in the summertime, but we would appreciate your consideration of our concerns at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Gleason? I have a question. You're asking for an extension. How much time do you think you would need for an extension to work this out?
Well, excellent question. I probably don't have the answer. I would think that there needs to be coordination between the school district, Department of Transportation, the municipality, the Parks Department, and the Turnagain Community Council. And considering it's still summer, even though weather isn't quite summer-like outside, I don't know when all those parties could actually meet, get together, and fully discuss this. So that we could perhaps come up with a good resolution that the board could then consider as far as approval of a plat.
Thank you. And earlier you said that many people have been working on this for a long time. How long have people in the community council been addressing this issue?
Well, the traffic problems on this particular spot of West Northern Lights, the council has identified for many years. If you travel that area at all and try and get out of either the Shell gas station, the Shell car wash, the post office, the current Dempsey site when there's a hockey tournament, or even just extensive use of the facility in the wintertime on the north side, and then on the south side, cars, several egresses out of the cars facility, it's a mess. Because then you have people coming out of the north wanting to go across the 3 lanes into the dedicated left-hand turn lane to get back to Benson. And you have people coming out of onto the left-hand lane that turns into a dedicated lane, and they're trying to get out of that lane into either the middle or right-hand lane, all in one very small location.
Thank you. And about how many years have these people have been working on this?
Well, I personally was not involved in the West Romig master plan, but I believe, John, were you involved with that? 2010. It was approved in 2010, but you did get comments from Sandy Rabinowitz, who is a resident near the area and a longtime Turnagain resident and active member of the council. He said that him and his wife worked on it for multiple years. So I think the development of that West Romig master plan went on for a multiple years. I couldn't be specific on how long. It was finally approved in 2010.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Anyone at all? You have the opportunity to use your time for rebuttal.
Petitioner, municipality. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Heath Landon, and I'm a capital projects project manager for the municipality. And wanted to address a couple of things. One, we have had the opportunity to sit down with the folks at the Turtigan Community Council and work through that. We have another meeting scheduled coming up, and we are very committed to mitigate as many of the concerns as they have as we move forward with the potential of the sports center on this site. A couple of things that I'd ask the Commission to the board to consider is, one, the West Roaming Plan, as I understand it, is not an actual adopted plan by the municipality, and the school district has considered those issues in issuing their comments. Separate from that, on the issue of the single drive access, it's my understanding that ultimately that's DOT's guidelines, so regardless of how we would move forward, there's a process with DOT that we would have to petition them for a permit regardless of if you're going to add it. So I'm not sure that delaying the action here tonight would even change the outcome of that, because anything we decide here, in my understanding, would ultimately still have to go for a permit through the DOT, and as I understand it, to get anything more than the single access as well. So, and the project as we have it now, we're moving forward through a design build process. So there are a number of stages along the way where there'll be opportunities for public comment and input into all those things. While there may not be a conditional use specific, but there would be the UDC facility site plan review, which that would be a little further down the process when we actually have something more specific, to look at from a design perspective, allowing folks to comment specifically to issues related to how we expect to move forward there. And it may be a little more effective at that point. And basically that's all I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can for the commissioners.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Edmondson.
Through the chair, Mr. Landon, there was been a couple comments here regarding pedestrian access and bus lane access. Do you guys currently have a plan on how you intend to address that, or is that forthcoming as a part of your design build project that would be reviewed through this site plan review process?
Commissioner Edmondson, through the chair, we don't have a specific plan on how to address that, but ultimately we would work with the community council and residents in the area and the school district as well, if that's something that is a priority to them, to mitigate as many of the concerns related to that as we can in the specific site plan, because I think now we're so early in the process with the design build, there just aren't enough hard facts to ultimately decide, yes, you could do that, because you've ultimately got to attempt to fit the parking spaces, the buildings, all that's required on that site, and that's not easy to answer until you start getting to the specifics of the design. What does the building look like exactly? So I think it's a little early, but we are very committed to doing that, and I certainly believe that there are a number of stages along the way where we will have the opportunity to do that and to work with them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions of the petitioner's representative? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the public hearing is now closed and the matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion in this case, please? Mr. Edmondson. Mr. Edmondson, would you speak to your motion?
In case S12003-1, Mont Haven subdivision, tract 3A, I move for the approval of the vacation of a 40-foot wide access easement subject to the recording of the final plat as outlined in the staff packet on page 5.
Thank you. And Ms. Enix seconds. Mr. Edmondson, would you speak to your motion and with some detail, please?
Yeah, I think, obviously the first motion here addresses the vacation of the 45-foot wide access easement that will no longer be necessary or needed with the combining of the two parcels here. I just want to note that the planning division and/or traffic have any objections to this, and seems to be appropriate based on the fact that these two tracks will be combined into one.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or findings? I intend to support this, and I'm basing my decision on the item number 7 on page 4. The Anchorage School District has no comments, and one of the items that was for comments received after the Platting Board packet from July 17th, and it was a letter by from Stephen Schmidt, who is the public land surveyor and the municipal surveyor, and he has found that the easement would be superfluous by joining these two tracks together, and that one of the findings that we will have to make is whether or not there's an impact on the implementation of the master plan, and he said he found no impact on the implementation of the master plan. So with those, I'm going to support it. Are there any additional comments or findings? And one other, we've heard from the testimony of the public tonight. There's concerns about a delay, and we found that a delay would not resolve anything. That these issues are going to have to be resolved with traffic, with DOT, and they're not, so that we couldn't do them tonight, and the public process will continue outside of the Platting Board to resolve this. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. And may I have a positive motion for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions that are stated on pages 5 through 7, please. Mr. Edmondson, would you state your motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, in case S12003-1, Mont Haven subdivision, tract 3A, I move for the approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 4 on staff packet 5, on staff packet pages 5, 6, and 7.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker seconds. Mr. Edmondson, will you speak to your motion, please?
I feel that all the conditions that are outlined in the staff packet addresses the concerns of the municipality, and additionally the concerns of some of the testimony we heard tonight. I just want to add that there is some outstanding issues in regards to pedestrian access and the bus access to the site that I feel will be addressed as a part of the site plan review process that's forthcoming. And I also feel that the school district is committed to addressing those issues during that site plan review.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. The next case is S12006-1, Rogers Park subdivision. May we have staff's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for preliminary plat for proposed Lot 8A, Block 2, Rogers Park, with a variance from the requirement that the width of the lot be 1/3 the depth of the lot. 89 public hearing notices were mailed. As 4 public hearing notices were returned unclaimed. No comments have been received either in support of or opposed to the proposed subdivision with variance request. Rogers Park, no comments were received regarding this proposal. Rogers Park was located in the city of Anchorage when it was platted in 1958, and a house was built on the 2 lots in 1958 according to property appraisal records. The house does span the common boundary between the existing lots 8 and 9. Vehicular access to the property is from Bannister Drive, which is a municipally maintained local road. The petition site is served with public water and sanitary sewer. However, it is not served with a piped storm drain system. Therefore, surface water generally drains northeasterly toward Chester Creek Park that abuts the north and northwest property boundary. The variance is from AMC 2180-300D, and it appears that the request meets the 4 standards. When this plat was recorded, the narrow and deep lots lying to the north of Bannister Drive were conforming lots, as the lot width to depth ratio was not enacted in the borough until 1972 and did not become effective subdivision design standard within the municipality of Anchorage until 1983, when subdivision standards were adopted. Now, the width of Lot 8 is 60 feet and the depth is 500 feet, yielding a 1:10 width to depth ratio. The width of Lot 9 is 50 feet and the depth is 440 feet. That results in a 1:9 width to depth ratio. However, granting this variance should have no adverse impact on the public welfare or would be injurious to other property in the area. If granted, the variance will result in a 1:5 lot width to depth ratio, which brings the property into greater conformance with the current subdivision design standards, and the replat will eliminate the lot line that now runs through that existing dwelling. The lots are legally non-conforming and were developed as though they were one parcel back in 1958. Granting the variance would move the property, again, as stated, would move it into greater conformity with current subdivision standards. And finally, there is no conforming alternative available to the applicants. The lots on both sides of the petition site have already been replatted, combining 2 lots to create wider lots for Lot 7A and Lot 10A. There isn't any possibility to acquire property on either side of the petition site as to make the lot wider in order to conform to the current standards. So therefore, the department does recommend approval of the variance and approval of the plat, subject to conditions 8 and 9 in the packet. And the conditions do address the need to resolve utility easements, to address adding plat notes, and to make some drafting changes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. O'Brien or staff? Thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Will the petitioner's representative please come forward, state your name, spell your last name for us, please, and let us know if you'd like to reserve any time for rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, planning staff, and concerned members of the public, my name is Tom Dreher, and I'm with the S4 Group, and I represent the petitioners tonight, Gene and Jeff Polson, and Gene Polson is here in the audience tonight. It's a fairly straightforward plat here, just basically a house cleaning issue. We're taking two 50-foot wide lots and turning them into one 100-foot wide lot. It has the side setbacks have legal non-conforming status, and it's been considered as one lot for quite a while. It just has one tax ID number. And we agree with all the conditions that are on your packet, page 8 and 9, A, B, 1 through 4, all of them. And with that, I'd like to reserve any time for rebuttal. Make myself available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify? Anyone at all? Mr. Dreher, you may use your time for rebuttal. Mr. Dreher waives his time for rebuttal. Are there any final questions of Mr. Dreher before I close the public hearing? The public hearing is closed. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Kange, would you state your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case S12006-1 Rogers Park subdivision, I move to approve of the variance from AMC 21.80.300D to allow the recording of the plat for proposed lot 8A, Block 2, Rogers Park subdivision.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker seconds. Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I believe that this variance request should be allowed. I tend to vote in favor of my motion. I believe that the circumstances have been met. There are special circumstances with this lot. As the petitioner said, I believe this is just kind of a cleaning issue. I believe that the subdivision regulations, adhering to them would clearly be unpractical and unreasonable in this case. I believe that granting this variance would result in greater conformance to the current subdivision design standards. And I believe that granting this variance would have no adverse impact on public welfare or interest to the other properties in the area.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or comments? Any questions for staff? I, too, will be supporting this, and I found that the conditions of the variance as stated on pages 6 and 7 have been met. Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. May I have a positive motion? Mr. Kange.
All right, thank you. Through the chair, again, in case S12006-1 Rogers Park subdivision, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to following conditions of 1 through 4, as outlined in our staff package on page 8 and 9.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller seconds. Mr. Kinch, will you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I tend to vote in favor of this. Based on the findings that are in our staff report, the petitioner's representative, and the lack of any opposition through the public and in the comment period that was allowed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. Congratulations. The next case is S11168-5, Grandeur Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Erica McConnell. I'm the current planning manager. I'm filling in for Dave Whitfield, the planner on the case, who is on leave right now. This is a request for a third time extension request for a subdivision agreement. I apologize, we have an error in the staff report where we identified it as the second time extension request, but it is actually the third. The first time extension request for the subdivision agreement was authorized by the municipal engineer in accordance with municipal code in April of 2010, and that extended the final date of the subdivision agreement from 2009 to 2011. The second subdivision agreement extension request came to the Platting Board in 2011, extending the expiration date to 2013, and this is the third subdivision agreement request, which, if approved, will extend the expiration date to 2015. This is requested for Grandeur Subdivision Lots 1 through 5, which is located in Bear Valley at the west end of Payne Road. And the subdivider is requesting this to allow for additional time to complete road and drainage improvements. 43 public hearing notices were mailed, and one was returned as undeliverable, but none were returned with any comments. None of the agencies had any concerns with this request, but there was one comment submitted online from a nearby resident who had concerns with the quality of Payne, or the length of time that Payne Road was under construction, and you can find that on page 32. The department recommends approval of this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. McConnell or staff? Mr. Edmondson.
Through the chair, Ms. McConnell, how common is it for us to give 3 extensions in regards to these types of subdivision agreements?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, I've been in my position for only about a year, so I don't have an extensive history in this. I have not seen a third extension of a subdivision request in that time, and my guess is that they're pretty rare. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. O'Brien is saying they're not very rare.
Thank you.
If I may, through the chair. It
Yes.
depends upon the cost of the improvements. They can sometimes, 3 extensions have been granted for subdivision agreements, and it depends on the cost of the improvements, the availability of funding, the ability to get funding through banks. There can be numerous reasons why improvements are not made. Payne Road is a particularly difficult, steep road to improve. The cost is probably more prohibitive than, say, a road in the Anchorage proper, or it's on the hillside. So there could be a number of reasons why a third-time extension could be granted, but I worked in platting cases for 17 years. It's not uncommon.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker had a question.
Have you considered any conditions that should be provided to obtain adequate performance guarantee while the extension is granted?
The private development section of the Development Services Department is the section of the municipality that manages subdivision agreements, and they did not recommend any particular conditions on this time extension.
And was there any inquiry into any safety hazards, drainage problems, or anything else along sandings, grading, snow removal, or otherwise?
Through the chair, Mr. Walker, I apologize. I'm not able to answer that question. I wasn't involved in pre-application meetings or any communications that Mr. Whitfield might have had with the petitioner.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? The public hearing portion is, the meeting is open to the public hearing. Would the petitioner's representative please step forward? State your name and, for the record, spell your last name for us, please.
Yeah, my name is Joe Burnham. I'm the petitioner.
And do you want to reserve any time for rebuttal?
I don't think I'll need any.
Probably not. You have 10 minutes.
We're here just requesting an extension. Market conditions, the financial coup that the banking industry took over the industry, the residential market has really limited the market here in town. It's slowly recovering. We had some engineering, we had a grade break that was found late in the game, and it caused a redesign in two different areas of the project on this road. As staff said, the areas on the hillside, it's sloped. It takes some real work to develop it. And we worked through those engineering changes, and we're ready to move ahead with the development. So that's it.
Thank you. You have 8 minutes and 47 seconds for rebuttal. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Mr. Edmondson, and then Mr. Walker.
Sorry. Through the chair, you've seen the comments on page 32 of the packet?
Yes, by that individual?
Yes.
Yeah, they're just frustrated the road hasn't been finished, I would assume, but the road didn't even exist until we started working on it. So they're no more frustrated than I am or the folks that are developing the road along with me. We're working two different properties under this one subdivision agreement. Their father lives about halfway down, but the road didn't go past their father's house, and they've got a couple of lots just past his house. So as we get the road finished, it'll be done, and they'll be able to use it. But I mean, it was just, there was nothing there. So I mean, I don't really see where he had took occasion to make that comment, because there was no road until we started building it. That's the next section of it.
Mr. Burnham, at what stage is the construction on the road right now?
We're actually up there working. That's why I look like I do. We're working now, but we're hoping to, depending upon what this rain does, we're hoping to complete it. We're about 3/4 of the way through. So we should be able to get it done and ready for inspection if the weather holds.
Is there anything you can do to mitigate the concerns of the property owner or do anything differently that might address their issues?
Well, until we get the road completed, I mean, I keep it open. I've kept it open every year. I keep the drainage done every spring as breakup takes place. I put in gravel up to Dennis's house, which is the father of the fellow that commented there. And Dennis doesn't have any problems with what's going on there at all. It's just I think his son is wanting to build, and he's wanting to, to be able to get in there to his place to build. And until we get that section of road abutting his property to where he can get in and out of there adequately, he's got a really difficult lot to build on. It's really steep right there where his lot is. It's a pretty good break. But there's not too much I can do till I finish construction of the road to give him access there, because it's like a 20-foot off the side of the road down to his lot. So he's got a pretty good little field to even do anything.
Mr. Walker.
Besides building the road, what else do you have left?
Besides the road improvements, pulling electrical utility in and telephone utility, and that's pretty much it. It's well and septic. So.
And you think you can have the road done this year?
I'm hoping to, yes, sir. If the weather will hold, we're hoping to be able to, yeah.
So in reality, you're not needing a full 2 years, you think?
I'm sorry, sir?
Do you actually need a full 2 years then on your...
Yeah, probably so. By the time we get through the inspection and get the utilities and the telephone in, I got it. The way this topography is up there, we've got to get this road in and get the area prepared for the utilities to come in alongside it. And we'll probably get the road construction done and ready for inspection. They'll probably inspect it next spring, but we'll still have that utility work to do before we can get signed off on the thing.
Are you aware of any safety hazards out there?
No, we keep the construction end of the road up beyond Dennis's house blocked off because there's no other access but us three property owners up there. And it's been functioning just fine. We haven't had any problems. We keep the kids out and stuff, so there's no safety problem.
And do you think when you finish the road, that's going to resolve the drainage issue problem?
Well, that drainage issue that he's speaking of there, I forgot about that. I'm sorry, Mr. Edmondson, I didn't address that. That's a natural drainage that, we've got a culvert in there. And every spring, you have spring runoff, and that's been taking place through eons of time, and it's going to continue to take place through eons of time. And there never was any ditch. There never was any road bed. So I don't know what he's referring to there. But that drainage is going through a culvert that we were required to put in by the city. So it's going to continue to take place in the spring when runoff takes place, or you have any heavy rains.
Thank you.
Mr. Edmondson.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Burnham, I had one last question.
Yes, sir.
How long actually is the extension of Payne Circle? How long is that street?
1,800 feet.
1,800 feet? Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of the petitioner?
Yes, through the chair. Is the neighbor participating in any way, shape, or form to help you build this road that he's going to benefit from?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have one. I want to understand this drainage a little bit better. On page 32, the statement says the water previously ran down a ditch on Payne Road, but now gets sent down our lot. So
Yeah. There never was a ditch. That section of Payne Road was never developed. It's just a natural drainage, and it's always drained there. The only thing we did was put a culvert in so we can build road over it.
So the drainage that he's referring to was, if I understand this correctly, the time extension is not going to resolve this issue. The water is going down a natural drainage and is following the path that it has followed for
Yes, sir.
Probably thousands of years.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Do you wish to use any of your rebuttal time?
I don't think I need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing portion of this meeting is closed. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion in this case? Mr. Walker.
As to case number S111685, Granger subdivision, I move that the extension, we approve the time extension for July 25th, 2015 for this plat.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I find that the current conditions are substantially the same as those that existed when the preliminary plat was approved. I also find that there aren't any particular safety hazards.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions? I have one. Ms. McConnell, can you address the drainage challenge that's on page 32? Do you have any insight or additional information?
Mr. Chair, without having some knowledge of where 14500 Joanne Circle is, I don't have any insight into the situation. I apologize.
Thank you. And if we allow this time extension with this comment and potential challenge, what's the mechanism for this to be mitigated? If we approve this, it appears that continuing the construction of the road is not going to mitigate this. So is this something that's just going down a natural drainage and doesn't require mitigation, or is this something that staff has asked for mitigation on?
Mr. Chair, the situation isn't fully clear. I mean, we have the commenters claim that water was previously in a ditch, but now is going onto his property. We have the property owner or the petitioner stating that there was no ditch and thus water could not have been in a ditch. So I can't clarify that situation. Certainly the commenter could come and speak with the municipality either through the code enforcement office or the private development office to explain his situation, look at the plans that were approved for the road design, and try to reach resolution.
Thank you. So for my understanding, if a remedy is required, then it can, and we pass this time extension tonight, the remedy can be resolved through the municipality.
Mr. Chair, I believe that is so.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. It's approved.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
The next case is S11987-2, Denali Alaskan FCU subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my name is Erica McConnell. I'm presenting for Mr. Whitfield, the planner who worked on this case and wrote the staff report. This is a request to re-subdivide 2 tracts and 1 parcel into 2 different tracts with a vacation of a 16-foot wide right-of-way and 2 16-foot public use easements. This subdivision is located on the southeast corner of 36th Avenue and Denali Street. The Private Development Department does note that the peripheral road to the south of the subdivision, Telephone Avenue, is substandard, but recommends that improvements to that road be required at the time of development rather than through this subdivision and a subsequent subdivision agreement. The vacation requests were found to conform to the municipal vacation policy, and the issues raised in the comments by the right-of-way section have been resolved to the satisfaction of the municipality. The 42 public hearing notices were mailed, and no comments were received back. And I would, as again, Mr. Whitfield wrote the case, and I apologize, I don't have a great knowledge of this one, but I would refer questions to the petitioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Any questions of staff? Any questions at all? Thank you. Will the petitioner's representative please step forward, state your name, spell your last name, and please inform us if you would like to reserve time for rebuttal.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Tanya Hickok, Hickok, with Dowell HKM. Tonight, representing Denali Alaska Federal Credit Union. As Ms. McConnell stated, we worked pretty intensively with Mr. Whitfield. You may or may not have noticed that this was up for a case back, I believe, in April or May, and it was postponed due to some of the findings that right-of-way found and later was remedied. So we have reviewed all the conditions on page 7. We have no additional comments, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, and you have 9 minutes and 20 seconds for rebuttal. Good job. Are there any questions from Ms. Hitchcock? Any at all? Yes. One moment, please.
Ms. Hickok, could you please speak to the vacation request?
The vacation request?
Why is it that it has no value?
Right now, we have full access on the parcels identified, so it already is fully served from 36, from Denali, and from Telephone Avenue. There is a common mutual agreement of access between the Denali Alaskan and our neighbor to the east, so any common access is accommodated through that easement. You may or may not have noticed that there was a right-of-way on the northern portion, and right-of-way and a PUE. And then on the southern portion, it was just a PUE, so right-of-way was never dedicated. And if you look in the municipal grid maps and in the OSHP, it was never required for access between those 2 parcels. So in looking at all the surrounding areas, the parcel is fully served, and there is no need for that right-of-way anymore.
Are there any other questions of the petitioner? You may, would you like to use any of your time for rebuttal?
No, thank you.
Thank you. With no additional questions, the public hearing portion of this meeting is closed. The matter now rests with the board. In the case of S11987-2, Denali Alaskan FCU subdivision, tracks 1 and 2, may I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Walker. Would you state your motion, please, Mr. Walker?
I'm on case number S11987-2. I move to approve the request to vacate a 16-foot by 198-foot right-of-way and a 16-foot public use easement in Book 231, page 321, and the 16-foot public use easement shown in Book 119, page 315.
Thank you. And Mr. Fuller seconds. Mr. Walker, would you speak to your motion, please?
I believe the testimony of Ms. Hickok is clearly supported that there is no value in the easements, that it was never dedicated as a public use right-of-way. Also, there's no finding in the documents that there's any value, and accordingly, it's appropriate for us to find that the vacation would be appropriate.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or findings or questions? Comments, findings, or questions? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. And may I have a positive motion for approval of the plat for 18 months with conditions? Mr. Kange, and Mr. Walker is going to second your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In case S11987-2, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 4 on page 7 of our staff packet.
Thank you. And Mr. Kange, would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I intend to vote in favor of my motion based on the findings in our staff package as presented by the petitioner's representative and stated by staff's testimony with regard to the agency's comments. I find that there's nothing detrimental in these comments are founded in fact by the comments from the various agencies.
Thank you. Are there any discussion or comments? Any questions of staff? Is there any opposition to this motion? The motion carries. Congratulations. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the Board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to Planning Division prior to expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based on the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per AMC 21.11.503 or an appeal of the Board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. The next item on the agenda are appearances, and we don't have any requested appearances tonight. Persons to be heard, that's going to be after the meeting. Reports from the chair. I know there's not too many of us here, but other than the board, but I would like to openly congratulate Jill and thank Jill for all of her service, her public service. She's retiring, and I think we should honor her for making that choice and for all of her service. So thank you, Jill. Get a speech. Are there any board member comments for tonight? May I have I do have one comment in that after the meeting tonight, which is about to end, we're going to hear from Jill on parliamentary procedures, which is going to be very important for us, and an incredible going-away gift from Jill. May I have a motion for adjournment, please? Mr. Edmondson. Mr. Walker seconds. Any opposition? The meeting is adjourned, and it is, I can't read the clock, 7:46. Thank you.